All right, we are live on YouTube and going live on Facebook. All righty, so welcome to Sunday Social. I'm Ashley. Let's see. Okay, so welcome to Sunday Social. I'm Ashley, of course. This is Sunday Social number 20. So I've been trying to be pretty consistent with doing Sunday socials throughout this year. So tonight I do have some good information planned. I know last week someone asked a question about de-escalation, and so I wanted to talk about de-escalation tonight. And also, I went to supervision yesterday, and I it was a group supervision, and we discussed briefly discussed recovery language. Substance abuse is one of the areas, and I'm very well rounded in social work, I think, but substance abuse and substance use is an area that I'm not really knowledgeable about. I haven't worked with people with substance use issues yet in my career, not on a primary basis anyway. I have worked with people who are in recovery, and people who were actively using some of our clients at a previous job that I held. So I do about substance use and substance dependency, but not a whole lot. And so, that's something that I need to make sure that I put on my radar because I like to be well rounded. So I do think that we will benefit from talking about recovery language because I wasn't aware until yesterday at my supervision that there are terms that are preferred now that maybe were not used in the past. So I am going to get started because I don't want to take a whole lot of time and this is a lot of information. So those are the two topics tonight. If anybody has any questions, feel free to jump in and ask. And it looks like my Facebook feed is not going to do right. So I may just have to repost. I may have to post this on the Facebook group afterwards. But anyway, so we'll go ahead and get started and take this off of the Facebook one. We'll end it here. Okay, sorry about the technical difficulty. Let me just end the Facebook live, and I'll probably try to restart it. But anyway, if and I'll just wait for like another couple seconds in case anybody wants to join before I get started. So other than the two topics that I have planned tonight, I don't really have anything else planned to talk about. So I'm gonna go ahead and try this again with the live on Facebook, which may or may not work. But if any questions come up, just go ahead and ask them as I proceed through the information that I have prepared for the night. Um, and again, we're going to just wait a couple seconds. Um, so hopefully you all had a good week and that you will have a great week going into the week that we are going into. Um, let's see here. Okay, so I think I'm back on Facebook Live now. Okay. So let's see. Oh, no problem, Kat. Thanks for getting info on that topic for me. No problem. So it's something like I said last week that I feel like we all need to know about, myself included. As a refresher, if anything. Okay, so let's see. So when we talk about de-escalation, of course, we know that this is the helping profession and that we will come across all kinds of people from all different kinds of backgrounds and different walks of life who have been exposed to some kind of trauma, who may have mental illness, who may be agitated, who may not know how to correctly express their emotions or effectively express their emotions. And so sometimes things get a little hectic. And, sometimes people already have a preconceived notion about social workers. Sometimes they think that we know it all. Sometimes they think that we're the expert in their lives. Sometimes, it's just a lot of things that happen. And so based on our perception of clients and clients' perception of us, things can get a little crisscrossed and cause people to react in ways that could potentially harm us or put us in harm's way with our clients. So like I said, people are sometimes in their worst time in their life when we come across them. And so they may be angry, they may be irritated, they may be agitated, they may feel some kind of way to have help from someone else. And so sometimes they think that we don't understand their struggle, which sometimes we don't. And so they may react to us in a way that can be harmful physically, emotionally, of course. And so it's good to know how to recognize when your client or your patient, or we'll say client for the sake of social work, because that's what we call the people that we work with, our clients. So it's good to know when your client is getting to that point where a situation might be escalating. And so what I did was I found a few different articles, websites, PDFs that talk about de-escalation, and I will post the link to all of them when I post the video on Facebook and YouTube, so that you can check them out yourself. Most of these are in the form of like a PowerPoint. So this is not information that I came up with myself. I found this and I'm just using it as talking points so that we can have some discussion here about de-escalation. So this first one, it comes from CPI's top 10 de-escalation tips. And so CPI, I'm not exactly sure what CPI is, but it is something that I found online when I was doing some research, and maybe we'll come across exactly what it is and during this conversation, but the information was good. So I'm going to just go through each of these briefly, and I'll just talk on them. So the first thing is to be empathic and non-judgmental. So when someone says or does something you perceive as weird or irrational, try not to judge or discount their feelings. Whether or not you think those feelings are justified, they're real to the person. So pay attention to them. So that's very important, I think. So let's see if we can think of just a situation that might cause some escalating tensions and emotions. And we'll use that example throughout the conversation. So let's see. We will say that we are working with a client who is a young mother. Let's say that she is 26, and let's say that she is divorced, because we don't want to make her a single mom. So she's 26, she's divorced, and she has a child that is 4 years old. So she was a young mom. Now let's say that we've come across this client, and she's had some trauma in her past, and I'm making this up off the top of my head, so bear with me. And she has some anger issues. Let's say that she's easily offended by anything that someone says to her. She feels like someone is always out to get her by any little thing that they say. She has a history of fighting in high school and middle school, but then she kind of got herself back together, and then she went to college, she got married, everything was going great, but then something went wrong in her marriage, she got a divorce. And so now she co-parents with her ex-husband, but she still has all these things built up. So you come across the client and you don't like the way that the client talks to her 4-year-old child. So let's say that the child is just being a child and playing with toys, and the client is in your office and she's had a bad day, and she's screaming and yelling at the child. So this is the only way that she knows how to get the child to be quiet and to discipline the child or whatever. So she might pop the child because the child won't listen or something like that. And that's another thing too. I've come across a lot of clients who were afraid to physically discipline their child in front of me because they thought that because I'm a social worker, they couldn't discipline their child and that I was going to call and make a report on them. And so I always tell people, some people don't like spanking their children. Some people use spanking as a method to correct their children, to correct their children's undesirable behavior. And so, I mean, who am I to judge that? As long as you're not beating your child. So I've seen people pop their child on the hand or something like that. So let's say that, that's what she does. So, but, we see that she's angry because she just lost her job. She missed the bus. She's late to her appointment with you, and she had to get her child because she doesn't have childcare. So I'm building all of this up so we can see, how the level of tension can come about. So this first tip says to be empathic and non-judgmental. So when someone says or does something you perceive as weird or irrational, try not to judge or discount their feelings. So the mom is upset with the child. She's screaming at the child. She's yelling at the child. She pops the child on the hand because the child is just continuously doing something that the mom doesn't want her to do. So we might not agree with her, getting loud with the child and spanking the child or popping the child on the hand. So in that instance, she's not abusing the child. She's just popping the child. And yes, she is screaming at the child because she's having a bad day and that kind of thing. And that's not justifiable, but this is what she's doing in this moment. So we might say to her, well, you seem to be upset. Maybe you shouldn't scream at little Tiffany right now because you seem to be upset. So this probably will tick her off. Well, we'll say that it did. It ticks her off. And so she's coming and looking at you like, who are you to tell me what to do with my child? And you're saying, well, no, I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't do that. But I'm just saying in this moment when you're angry, maybe you shouldn't yell at Tiffany and maybe you shouldn't pop her. Maybe you should just, calm down a little bit. And, Tiffany is fine. She can sit there and play with the toys. Everything is fine. So, but the mom just can't get over the fact that you, the social worker, is telling her one more thing that she should or shouldn't be doing, or trying to tell her, or teach her trying to teach her a parenting skill, while she has all of this stuff going on. So we as a social worker should be able to recognize that the client, which is the mom, is in a situation right now. She has a lot going on. She's not abusing the child. Maybe she isn't, like we said, disciplining the child in an effective way right now due to her emotions. But we have to be non-judgmental. Now, if she's beating the child, I want to make that clear because I don't want people to think that I think that it's okay to like punish your child physically, because I don't. But, the child is, let's say she's drawing on the wall or whatever, but we have washable crayons in the office or something like that. So we, as a social worker, we see that the mom is upset and we're just like, you know what? I see that she's drawing on the wall, but don't worry. The markers, the crayons are washable. Don't worry. But the mom is in her mind thinking, well, I don't want her doing this at home. So, so this whole situation is going on. So we need to be able to recognize that, okay, maybe this isn't the time to discuss parenting styles and forms of discipline with the mom. So we need to just be empathic and non-judgmental. So it says, keep in mind that whatever the person is going through, it may be the most important thing in their life at the moment. So that doesn't really apply to this situation or this scenario, but still, we don't want to judge or discount the mom's feelings because she has, in her mind, a crisis situation going on right now with losing her job and not having the bus and the childcare and that kind of thing. So it's just best to be empathic and non-judgmental. So, all right, number 2, respect personal space. This is a really big one because some people have no boundaries and some people don't understand that people need their space. Like you could be in the grocery store line and people will be behind you and they'll be right up on you. and they probably don't mean to be that close to you, but they're just talking, having a conversation and that kind of thing. But personal space, of course, as we know, is golden and valued. So it says, if possible, stand 1.5 to 3 feet away from a person who's escalating. Allowing personal space tends to decrease a person's anxiety and can help you prevent acting out behavior. If you must enter someone's personal space to provide care, explain your actions so the person feels less confused and frightened. So with the given scenario that we're talking about here, we were probably in an office setting with this client and her daughter, and so we probably wouldn't be so close up on her because we have a desk and there's probably chairs and that kind of thing. But let's say that the mom is just coming into the office, but there's a lobby area before you get to the office. And let's say that you hear her coming through the door and you hear her screaming and yelling and you hear her pop the child. So you go out into the lobby to see what's going on. And you just happen to just walk close to her, and you don't mean to be in her personal space, but just because you hear this chaos, you just walk out and you just happen to stand, more closely to her than you planned to. So this could and you're now telling her, maybe you shouldn't be yelling at her while you're upset, and maybe you shouldn't be popping her. But so this could cause tension to build, and this could cause the situation to escalate. So by us being that close to her in her personal space, that might be seen as, she's already irritated, agitated, aggravated, or whatever you want to call it. So we want to be able to allow her some personal space, because if we're that close up on her, when people are stressed out and, like we said in the example, she's been a fighter since middle school and high school, you don't know, like she might see this as something intimidating, and you go into that fight, flight, or freeze mode, and she might decide to fight. So you need to just make sure that, okay, now I see what's going on. Let me give her some personal space, give her 3 feet, step away, and, try to calm her down and respect her personal space. So that's number 2. Number 3, use non-threatening nonverbals. So the more a person loses control, the less they hear your words, and the more they react to your nonverbal communication. Be mindful of your gestures, facial expressions, movements, and tone of voice. Keeping your tone and body language neutral will go a long way towards diffusing the situation. And that's important too, because I'm pretty sure we've all worked with someone who, some people, when they feel upset or they're angry or they're mad, it's written all over their face. They can't hide it. Other people are really good at hiding when they are hurt or upset or angry or emotional. But again, some people aren't. So again, if we are working with this client with the given scenario, and we are using threatening nonverbals. So a threatening nonverbal would be, well, hold up, wait a minute, doing all this with your hands, the gestures, you're looking at her, rolling your neck and that kind of thing. Like, I know you pointing your finger. I know you aren't popping her while you're upset and that kind of thing. And your tone of voice, like you hear her screaming and yelling at the child, and then you then in turn come out and start screaming and yelling too. So that, of course, is going to escalate the situation, because, she's already on maybe 8 or 9 out of 10. And then here you come yelling and, oh, no, ma'am, I know you're not popping Tiffany, and you just doing the most. So you don't want to do that. What you want to do is use non-threatening nonverbals. So once you see what the situation is, you're being empathic, you're being non-judgmental, you are giving the person their personal space, then you use non-threatening nonverbals. So you say, okay, I see what's going on here. You get the bigger picture here. So because you have worked with this lady and her daughter, so you kind of know what her background is, because again, we know about the trauma that she's experienced. We know about the fighting that she's had. We know about the divorce and all that other kind of stuff. We don't necessarily know about what's happened during her day, but we know this client. And sometimes you won't know the client, but we know this client in this given scenario. So you say, okay, now if you have a rapport built with the client, and if you know how the client reacts to certain things, then there are certain things that you can and can't do. So let's see, tone of voice. So it's never a good idea to raise your voice with someone else who has their voice raised already, because that alone will escalate a situation. So, you say, did we give this lady a name? I don't think we did. We gave the little girl a name. Her name is Tiffany. So let's say that the lady's name is, let's see, what do I want her name to be? Jessica. We have Jessica and we have Tiffany. So Jessica is the mom, Tiffany is the daughter. So you come out, you say, Jessica, what's going on? And then she says, I've had a bad day. I lost my job. I missed the bus. My childcare is not available like I thought it was. I had to go and get Tiffany, and now she's drawing on the walls and she won't sit still and all this stuff. So you've heard what's going on. And it says the more a person loses control, the less they hear your words and the more they react to your nonverbal communication. So be mindful of your gestures, facial expressions, movements, and tone of voice. So you might say, okay, well, Jessica, I understand that. How about you come in to my office, have a seat. Tiffany is fine. Don't worry about her drawing on the walls, and just regular tone of voice. We don't want to go out there and say, well, girl, what's wrong with you? Why are you... You know how and honestly, I've seen some social workers just fly off the handle like this in situations. And it's better to be professional than just to remove your social work hat and react, because that's not what we do. So you say, okay, I'm sorry to hear that you lost your job. Come on in. Let's talk about this. It will be okay. That kind of thing. So your tone of voice is neutral. Your body language is welcoming. So you're guiding her. You're not necessarily touching her. You're not in her personal space, but you're guiding her. You say, well, just come on in, have a seat. Do you need anything to drink? I have snacks for Tiffany, da, 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 da. So all of this is non-threatening, non-verbals, and those are your facial expressions, your gestures, your tone of voice, that kind of thing. So then after that, number 4 is, let's see. Come on. Okay. Avoid overreacting. So remain calm, rational, and professional. While you can't control the person's behavior, how you respond to their behavior will have a direct effect on whether the situation escalates or diffuses. Positive thoughts like, I can handle this and I know what to do, will help you maintain your own rationality and calm the person down. So, of course, we don't want to overreact. Remain calm, rational, professional, like I just said. So, again, we're not going to yell and get upset because she's lightly disciplining Tiffany by just popping her on the hand. Yes, she is yelling, but she's not being verbally abusive or anything like that. So we are still calm, rational, and professional at this point. All right, so that one's pretty self-explanatory. Number 5, focus on feelings. Facts are important, but how a person feels is the heart of the matter. Yet some people have trouble identifying how they feel about what's happening to them. Watch and listen carefully for the person's real message. Try saying something like, that must be scary. Supportive words like these will let the person know that you understand what's happening and you may get a positive response. So we are, again, focusing on Jessica's feelings. And like I just said, well, I'm sorry to hear that you lost your job. Everything will be okay. And sometimes I always say that I don't like to tell people that I understand something if I really don't. Like, that's one of the worst things that you can tell a person, is you understand when you've never been through something that they're going through. So in this instance, Tiffany says, not Tiffany, but Jessica says,